So I will do whatever I possibly can to attain the peerless state of enlightenment in order to benefit all living beings. And, understanding that in order to do that I must perfect all the trainings on the Bodhisattva path, and that requires a thorough knowledge of what those trainings are, and I gain that knowledge through reliance upon an unmistaken presentation, an unmistaken text. And so it is my motivation today to listen carefully to any explanation on the outlines of the great treatise of the stages of the path to enlightenment as composed by the great Lam Rim Outline. The2Apr17 gyatang yapchung yapchuk. So we've arrived at the outline, which says in particular how to train in the final two perfections, namely perfections of meditative concentration and the perfection of wisdom. And so though they appear at this point in the graduated path teachings, they are nonetheless absolutely necessary for those practitioners who are adhering to the teachings related to the smaller and the medium capacity beings. So here, of course, we're discussing the beings on the greater capacity, but this training on meditative concentration and wisdom is, of course, absolutely essential for those practitioners of the hearer or the solitary realizer of vehicle teachings, but they are not explicitly dealt with in the context of the graduated path presentation. And so this is why we have, like, when we discuss teachings on the smaller and medium capacity beings, they are this kind of looking at the subject matter in common with the smaller capacity, in common with the medium capacity being. And then the third category is the teachings related to the greater capacity being path, which is dealt with more extensively. And so this is where the explanation on these final two perfections, meditative concentration and wisdom, comes in.
다 개발도 파지 타만이라 납주네스다 시내다 한동 거베 추대해서 된 일을 받았어. 삼대다 시럽게 파진이 뒤에 치료고서 다들라 두 시내다 한동 거베 표현지 다 시내다 한동 거베 표현 아니 되니 땡게지 군지 뒤제도 대봐 땡게지 담지기 뒤제도 대봐 다 시내다 한동을 보고 그때 이미 시내 그때 쓰를 한동 그때 쓸었어 그랬어 다 네가 공급에 좀 재. 공급에 좀 생각해. 아니, 내가 공급에 좀 생각 시에서는 아니, 거리 내봐. 나도 검다자도 시내게 되는 하도 이제 거리 내다도 가려. 아니, 소줄 납줄로서 왔다가자 삼자 투 되는 속도.
So this outline of, in particular, training in the final two perfections, and they are. This is really how to meditate on mental serenity, to gain mental serenity, and then the application of special insight. And so the kind of like the stages of both the mental serenity and special insight are included in the final two perfections, namely meditative concentration and wisdom. They're kind of subsumed into that subject matter. So in relation to this outline, there are 6 subheadings. And so the first is looking at the benefits of developing meditative serenity and special insight. Secondly, how all meditative concentrations are included within those two of meditative serenity and special insight. And number 3 is the looking at the nature of meditative serenity and special insight. And fourthly, how it is necessary, the reasoning behind why it's necessary to habituate or develop both. And fifthly, looking at the certainty of the order, whether it's necessary to definitely develop meditative serenity prior to special insight, etc. And then the 6th is how to train in each of them. Do you have the outlines related to this? Yeah.
다들 한동 모두 개발도 맞고 연결돼 있는 서브젝트는 그렇더라고 사실은 러블 차트 서브젝트는 뭐 이제 방적으로 시행치 말이야. 시행치 말이야. 그 러블 뭐 시작하자 말이야. 자 서브젝트 시작하자 또 되게 어렵다. 근데 저 러블 차트를 고아 차이 좀 힘들어. 나도 모두 저도 그거를 러블 뭐 능신체는 봐. 이 방진도 두고요 말때 이는 서브젝트 러블 뭐 서브젝트는 안 대시 럽 좀 되게 어려워. 근데 그거 람 림 차장 저기 또다 왔다 가르쳐서 자고 해치도 또 되게 어려. 그래서 저 뒤째는 다들 람 림 뭐 한동 거도 인지도는 다들 좀 살아 인지도는 괜찮아. 근데 또 로나나 로나나 다들 이제는 거기 지나는 다 대시 개발 용도가 인자. 또 로나는 약고 요랬어. 무슨 말씀이다.
If you have the time, of course, and so to really supplement what we do here, looking at the mere outlines of the great treatise on the stages of the path to enlightenment, of course, and in that it's like trying to tie in all of the subject matter of the graduated path into the outlines. But I would ask you, if you have the translation of this text or a similar text, to also supplement your study and reading by reading the special insights section of the translation. That would give a more extensive explanation of what is covered here.
다 현대달 한동 거에 표현 뉴스라 다 현대달 한동 검정 토배 규기 된데 양서 예 기회 미발라自己과 연체게 등에서는 현대지 초수 둘라 지다원 진입에 또 소소집에 실업때 개원도 한동의 초수 뒤에 될라 공에서 태고 숨지 연대 탐제 신라게 접고 되대 되대서 공제 소리 송송서 도대 공제에서 다 산재기 도당하는 뒤에 대신 공제 때 가서 대신 다 자가 개발도 개발 제베 흉태솔 때는 하고도 송소하지 못했죠.
And so the first of these outlines, looking at the benefits of cultivating meditative serenity and special insight, and it's saying that though the qualities that of within the mind stream of that are attained through meditating on meditative serenity and special insight, they are differentiated in terms of the all meditative concentrations that primarily concentrate on a single pointed focus on the object of virtue are classified as meditative serenity, and all the virtuous wisdoms that differentiate conventional and ultimate objects are classified as special insight. And so this is the thought of the sutra, the Buddhist sutra, called the Sutra Unraveling the Intended Meaning, and this has been backed up by all the masters of India and also in Tibet. And so in that context we can talk about the results arising from meditative serenity and special insight equate to all the benefits of the three vehicles of practice.
지단다 셴네다 한동 지단 셴네다 한도데 아니 다 가지네 먹고 쉬사래 지나 지데벨라면 직데벨라면 다 지나 투모에 그러 힌두 출로네 힌두 당제 바다리 바자다 그지 좀다 띵사고 유케 힌두 출로 먹고 줘봐 아니 힌두 출로 간가 말해 다 힌두 출로 지 좀다 띵사고 유데 당제 바 리바제 바 안 제자 바 아니 지부바 what 소베다 가자 가서 좀다 띵사보다 자치부 유게 대대릭직 요래 아니 디게 디다 다 남바다 안다다 제인스마레 지부바로 제 보다 디주 출로 나로라 보다 가자 지 워스코르다 셴네다 안 한동디 개불레티 요래 개불레티 요래 다 단다디 셴네 잠다 한동 잠 직대배 대잠마세 다 가자 지 직대레 대배게 근데 셴네다 한동 계셔 다 되면서 그 다다제 파진두고 남래제도 다 직대레 대바 내고와 어디저다 나 배투 많이 배키 주소로 찾대와 어디 저 디나네 대바치 보통 많이 배키 주 찾대고
So, as I have mentioned before, that the subject matter of meditative serenity, and indeed to a certain extent special insight, is also to be found in other traditions, namely Hindu traditions, but not all. Only some schools within the Hindu tradition have kind of a more well defined and more profound exposition, and more vast in their kind of treatment of this subject matter. So a lot of the kind of subject matter kind of overlaps there. However, in this context, when we speak about meditative serenity and special insight, we're not talking about just the kind of mundane levels of special insight and meditative serenity, but the supramundane elements as well. And this is why, in many ways, the subject matter of meditative serenity and special insight comes at this stage in the Mahayana section of the greater capacity being section of the graduated path. That it is in the context of the 6 perfections.
Zawa danzi mari bada di nyambo dame tobe shara komi choku yore. An dinza chikaso de shene dal hando nide da medu mero wachal to. Pena chashawa ina jigdenbe lamla tawa ina ngozo jigdenbe lamla tewa ina kaso de debe nyomo pang la shene mena debe nyomo pang to to. Debe nyomo ngozo deba asidwa ngozo. Debe nyomo deba la magi ba sogo to debe nyomo pangorwa deba nyomo pango to deba la magi ba sowala debe nyomo pango ta shene da mushi ki on to ene debe nyomo te shukso to ro ta mushi ki on to debe nyomo me ba cha ro mushi samde mushi shene da mushi sing chorma mushi shene mushi sing chor ta kam ko mesem ro sunga mesem ro sunga mesem oda ta tende indo kasan deba ma ke ba che soba la ya debe nyomo pang ko do debe nyomo pang la shene kom ko do tenge se kom ko do ta deba sa ma che deba da suga da suma ka tamje la lenyu go ong ma ke ba soba la ane deda ge tu 다지 머리 바빵 거도 다지 머리 바나 근데 다음에 또 배셔를 한줄에 끼고 또 다들 이마에서 랑귤라 람귤라 템발라 셴네메나 도사메게 람 고만네 고마 도발라 아니 한동메나 도사메게 차대도 근데 이제 셴네다 한동니데 그래서 공급의 페인티 마음나 탑메까지 차대도
So, with this in mind, we say that therefore, as we proceed through from higher to higher paths, to higher and higher stages on the path, we must have cultivated both meditative serenity and special insight. In fact, if it is a prerequisite to being able to really make progress on into the higher pathways. So, to attain, for example, the path of accumulation, we need to cultivate genuine renunciation, the sense of definite emergence, to really have set our sights to strive towards liberation without any misgivings. And so to further that, to gain the path of preparation, we need a stability of mind. So now the focus on meditative concentration becomes more important, and bringing in the meditative serenity. And indeed, to be able to attain the path of seeing such meditative serenity is absolutely necessary. And from there on, to also proceed along the paths and grounds to familiarize with the realization of selflessness. It's natural that we need a special insight to be able to do that. So from moving from the kind of mundane paths and mundane levels of the path to the supramundane. So we have, for example, the meditative mental afflictions related to the desire realm, which can be ameliorated or reduced to a great extent through meditative serenity, through developing that control of the mind. But as we get onto the higher levels of the path, so into the form and the formless realms, we need to deal with the root issue of the problem of cyclic existence, namely the ignorance of the grasping at a self entity. And for that we need to develop the wisdom of selflessness, and that is, of course, bringing in the whole area of special insight. And so you can see that that to progress really on the path, we need to cultivate both meditative serenity and special insight. And this is why also we can talk about special insight and meditative serenity as being at some level at the heart of all the good qualities that arise in the three as part of the three vehicles.
Pena mame chi lung yo sa chi na ko pen na gun sa chi remote wa ta thong yo na lung yo sa chi na mame de sha be yo na se bu thong go mar was ani lung ma yu wa chi ta lung ma yu de deng ge zhe chang gu duwa mame de xie le chang gu duwa ta be lung ma yu wa che ani mame se bu ju yo ba ina ani di na lo yo wa cha zang se bu ju thong du gu wa ma yu wa chi thong de gu 다대인 바이자 거기 녀몽데 녀몽가 자와 단지 마리바다 카테 장오도 아니 지금 로 땜부 직당 아니 디랑시 차상 통계기 아니 저 셰. 다 나다 땜부 고도 와. 디니 송제게 토네 아니 거기서다 녀몽 바차를 잡으면 소도했지. 너도 왔다 진짜 그 땡에서 매나 셰라 땅바그 제투요 말이 셰라비요 왜 갈가자 하고 봐 이네 땡게지면은 제도 뭐도 가서 땡게지 스페 셰럽 그 스페 땡게지 고고도 하다. 다들 매도 매로하지. 딱 가자 뭐서 코아딜라 동해그라신 탄 톤에 델라 타바지 돈도 니고 요바 이나 다 탑메게지 땡게지다 셰럽니게 윤대 통고해지. 뒤 통해 톤에 엔딜 좀 받지 고해지. 자 되게도
And so it's put very beautifully in the imagery that we find in the graduated path teachings of the image of a butter lamp and that flame of the butter lamp. It's often, described that the flame itself stands for wisdom, and but that when we see it out in the open, at the mercy of the winds and breezes, that flame is flickering and moving back and forth, unsteady completely, unclear, and so on. And this refers to a mind that is devoid of a meditative serenity, that meditative stabilization that is necessary. So it's showing how both meditative concentration and wisdom are kind of really married together. They're kind of really codependencies. Really, they really need to have each other. So you have that sense of the steady flame of wisdom, made steady by the meditative concentration, allowing that kind of to be seen clearly, for that flame to illuminate clearly and to cut through directly, opposing the root cause of cyclic existence, that ignorance of grasping at a self-entity. So it's again the image of the axe with the sharp blade. And that's one element of the wisdom of that sharp blade, able to cut through the wood, but it needs a stable, strong base and a very kind of like a stable base, and which is the meditative concentration, strong arms, body, to be able to swing that blade of wisdom and to cut through the knot of ignorance. And so if we don't have that strength, foundational strength of the body, the stability, then just you're swinging the axe, but it's going everywhere again. Let's say that's kind
and you want them at it and take on the lot and think it's the boy to go to Atakaja. That is soon a conject, Takaja thing in the Shirab Matu Matu, but I can get that paying come with that paying to not draw a gig, what I get you chatted that was that Lam like a dish lover in a lam in a love joint by a song in a cartier in a ticket table to the Toa score. And draw in a let you need to do what you manage to do, Marwa.
So that the person who sees the faults of cyclic existence and thereafter develops this encouragement to strive towards liberation from cyclic existence, for such a practitioner, the tools of meditative concentration and wisdom are indispensable. They really need them. So as Gen was saying, that stability of the body, of meditative concentration, swinging the blade of wisdom to cut through ignorance. And that here is this explanation of the benefits of developing meditative serenity and special insight, in order that, and this comes first, in order to develop this sense of enthusiasm, of delight in us to want to develop such qualities. This is of course so necessary, because if we see what can eventuate from habituating to both meditative serenity and special insight, the results, in other words, that we have that confidence that we can gain those results, then we're going to make every effort in practice. Just like business people, they see the profit at the end of the line and they really put a lot of effort in. Just like those who engage in study as well, once they see that they can gain this qualification at the end, they're willing to undergo all sorts of trouble and hardship to get there. 당부 낭초를 거 돈을 디하고 싶도 상사체 아니 된대질 디 간장선에 거 다와 찍니 숨치는 거 인들라도도 거들 노마차도도 다 좋아 근데 당부 낭초 통도다 단단히데 숙식도 또 로가차데 가서 뭐저 땡가지 매만 잡으러다 You can see also that the absence of meditative concentration and wisdom, that meditative serenity and special insight, is sort of like that which can color our own practice even at this level. That we may have like an enthusiasm on first hearing of the importance of virtue and so on, and want to have great initial enthusiasm to engage in virtue, but without the stability of mind provided by a meditative serenity, that the virtue that we have started doesn't last, and it degenerates more and more and more until after a few months we're back at base level again, and we've habituated to just being the same and not with no transformation. So we really need that sort of input of the consistency that comes from a stability of mind, born out of meditative concentration, serenity, and also that we can, and not only that our virtues will not degenerate, but rather improve and increase, and so we can do that through the combination of meditative serenity and special insight.
다 니바 데니에서 니바 데니 땡에서 군지 두제도 땡바네서 다 태바 치중기 땡에서 타예 맛이 가세바 탐제 강도 두베 내 담바네 아니 시네 달한돈 지나 두팅레세요 이노자.
The second outline states how serenity and insight include all states of meditative concentration, and so it's really saying here that that all of what the Buddha says about all meditative concentrations related to all the different vehicles are included in the subject matter related to meditative serenity and special insight.
다 수바 시내죠 뭐번에서 시내죠 뭐번에 나도 양다 샤내서 지달래 벌써베 최대다 최에서 최대 다니 일라 제전서 다 최대가 남바 일라 제전서 셈 간지 일라 제베 셈데 나도 균차수 일라 제베 이제 도서 보다 된지 말씀드렸죠.
So then the third outline is the nature of both serenity and insight. Firstly, the nature of serenity. Here, first of all, having properly turned one's kind of attention inwards, one then starts to carefully reflect on a particular subject matter, and one directs one's attention specifically to that very object, and one kind of mentally engages with that object, and then develops a continuity or continuously engages with that object. And so meditative serenity refers to the state of mind, the mind that arises from the mental and physical pliancy that in turn arises from being able to maintain that state of mind and to be able to remain in that state of mind, that engaged mind often. And that's again coming from that sutra unraveling the intended meaning. And the meaning, in brief, is that the kind of meditative serenity is a kind of a meditative concentration which one-pointedly focuses on its object of virtue, and by means of the mental and physical pliancy that it is generated.
대 루신도 장바다 셈신도 장바데 톱네 데니라 네데 셈제 넘버 빵네 셈제 넘버 빵네 제대로 삼베 최대다 최대 단위 나도 단 최대여서 단위 나도서 땡게这个 줄럼 수년도 소소도 같이 제메바 또 같이 묘같이 대다를 세제 된나라 대 넘버 제바다 라도 넘버 제바 용수 도마 용수 제바 서바다 되바다 제자제바 는 다와다 남바도바 칸이 바테네 판도시에 저것이 돌에 송대서.
And so the nature of special insight. And so then from that mental and physical pliancy, having attained that mental and physical pliancy, staying therein and eliminating other mental objects. And so it is then kind of like from within the domain of meditative concentration in relation to the images, one discerns any differentiation in the meaning of the topic under analysis. And so here the kinds of mental engagement that is included within under the topic of special insight would include the full differentiation of that topic, the thorough examination, thorough analysis, forbearance, wish, differentiation of particulars, view, or thought. All of that is referred to as special insight or insight.
다들 제바제 다른 가서 땡에서 마톱라 제바제도 라도도 다 땡에서 톱 창견들라 아니 내한테 아니 제바제바데 땡에서 숙체도 줘야지 이바체도 줘야지 난 숙체도 줘야지 그 믹스에 줘서 봐 당가서 나랑도 돼 야바체도 요 말이야 그래서 배는 가서 컨트롤사도 샘가 컨트롤 시험하도 좋다 그래서 정도도 그 들을 제바제 당한테는 컨트롤 숙총 다한테 용금도 아까서 어떻게 공부도 요 말이야.
And so, again, kind of a summary of that would be that the special insight is a wisdom which is differentiates with regard to its object, brought on by mental and physical pliancy, which is induced by a power of analysis, all within the state of meditative or mental serenity. So, in brief, as Ken is saying here, that one develops meditative serenity. So one is single-pointedly focused on a particular object. There is no movement from that object. One's mind is stable, and one's focus is clear. Now, when one brings in the element of special insight into that, one doesn't deviate from that focus. One has one part of one's mind remains in the meditative serenity, single-pointedly on the object, while at the same time, simultaneously, without any disturbance, another part of the mind, the special insight, engages in an analysis of that same object, whatever that focus is, and that this is a very powerful process of penetration through this special insight. And it's not unlike anything that we have, like when we think we're trying to concentrate on something, whether it's focused or whether it's analysis, and then some thought comes into the mind and anger immediately takes over and we're completely lost and we have to drag ourselves back to the object and so on. This is a long way past that.
다치다 지금 현내소로 전변의 дө배 구소로 지금 미네 인데스 미바샤네 дө배 구소로 미 안데 미바데 템보 때도 다 땡게 дө배 콜레 비베 땡게 지게 바이나 미바데 네 시베가라 아니 데네 아니 로이시 지 자자 갈라 간삼지 дө배 구텔라페 지가소데 미바 때바네시 미바 다 미바란 다 미바 때바나시 딜라 마요자 셈 상에 대백하라 셈 수르치기 안티 되베 셰레 되베 샹레 되베 제레 안 되베 네레 스타카제 산제기 답변에 안티 되베 차레스 다들 전 가자 로수치기 제바치네 다 디자다 다 디마서 제바제 다 직대별 한동소 주로 다가제 어다가제 인데제 다 간제 지금 다 동반이의 샤와이네 동반이 답변은 각자 각섬 되는저 답변은 뭐지 다시 권에 제받지는 다시 권에 받제바 제제제제 다시 권에 제받지는 아니 각자 각섬 되는저 맞sem샤 각자 각섬 제 되는저 롤 각자 각섬 다팀 다 각섬 되는저 sem샤네 다 sem샤바 되게 다도 돈이를 미베셔네서 sem샤네 다 로야고진 대두고 요바이나 마요스 때는 로수지가 양 다시 거네 제바체네 다디지도 디제바체한테 아니 미게데 니바 체트 주고 있어래 안딜은 녀모는 녀서 체트 주고 있어래 니버서 다 녀모가 자고 단지 말에 니바 슉 체트 주고 있어래 거 니바 체트 가라도 다다 땡에서 마도 인자 또 제바체도 예 주고 와 내셔도 다가자 안 된데게 검시여도 아니 지단은 녀모께 지단 직가소를 답에 가서는 한동 개발자 뭐고 지단 직대로 투모할 한동상 개발 있네 아니 스템기 자와시고 제두고 있어요 안 되사 개발 있네 되사디 라야 로시바께는 갑자기 내라고 싶지 공도도 시단 개발 있네 그 남장 로시바지가 뒤에 된들 갑자기 내라 용 것을 내라고 딱 그죠 뒤가서도 한동 개발자 더 내주려고 하러 와 시험하고 보러 와
So take the example of an ordinary state of insight, a sort of mundane insight. This might manifest as one's developing meditative serenity by focusing on a representation of the Buddha. So one's mind is developed to the point where one is single-pointedly, unmovingly focused with clarity and stability on an image of the Buddha, and then one, through kind of a side part of the mind, like a subsidiary constituent of the mind or part of the mind, engages in a kind of analysis of exactly what you're focused on. So one is able to now start, while still remaining single-pointedly on the overall body of the Buddha, one is able to now start distinguishing. So this is the mouth, this is the nose, these are the eyes, this is the ear, this is the hand of the Buddha, etc. So this is an example of kind of a mundane insight applied on the basis of meditative serenity. Of course, from the point of view of super mundane insight, the subject matter is emptiness, and so we are looking into the emptiness based on like the getting to the analysis where we reach the mere object of negation. So the negation of the mere object of negation. And so that's reaching in the end point of a particular string or line of analysis. And then we apply the serenity side of our concentration, focusing just on that. while at the same time, again, as in rebooting an analytical special insight aside. So it said that when we have that power of concentration to maintain just there on the absence of the mere object of negation, at the same time re-engaging in the same analysis, reaching that same point, that the sum effect is extremely powerful for penetrating, cutting through the afflictive emotion and getting to the wisdom of truth and so on. And so again, to really compare that with the way we are now, what we have is like a very fickle kind of a sort of a sense of a mind that is unable to maintain enough concentration on any object, let alone that, to be able to stop the wavering of distraction, to be able to apply the kind of like cutting edge of the insight. And so when we talk about, again, ordinary, mundane insight, one is employing the cultivation of meditative serenity, combining that with that ordinary insight, more to simply replace any afflictive emotion that one can come up with a more amenable emotion. So say if a desire comes up, one applies an antidote and one is able to reach a more equanimous state of mind. If anger arises, one is able to recognize that, oppose that with an antidote, and for a more equanimous state of mind. It doesn't have that same penetrative ability to get to cut through the root of things that the supramundane insight that we're referring to has. So that we have to really be aware that without the meditative concentration, that we don't have the raw power of the mind to penetrate, and it's really quite apparent to us, isn't it, that we sense the great potential and power of the mind, but we're unable to employ it. We're not able to make use of it because we haven't cultivated that sense of concentration. So in many ways, we are, all of us really led by our senses to follow the objects of the senses, and that this is sort of like in a way of disenfranchising ourselves of the great power of our own minds, that we haven't got the opportunity to make use of that because we are in thrall to whatever the senses present for us, the objects of the senses. We're just sort of like in a how would you say, like a confusion of following from one object of the sense to the other.
안 딜라 때네 아니 세븐 누가 차상지 뭐좀 어떻게 도움도 아니 배주 땅 도움도
So that when we hold such objects, objects of the senses to be so important, we give ourselves no opportunity to develop a proper meditative concentration, because one of the essential prerequisites of developing meditative concentration is said to be in an isolated place, away from distraction like the objects of the senses. But when we are so much enthralled to external objects, how can we develop focus on an internal object of the mind? It just stands to reason that that's not possible. And so without being able to develop that raw potential that we have, we won't be able to take the opportunity of what that offers. We will not be able to, in other words, make use of our potential.
그래서 그 옹비 시바 그래서 옹비 시바 되게 다 되게 시원한데 치바에는 유를 떠서 쳐보도 아니 유디 매바이나 마기바 전 되기도 그러다 들어가서 좀 배는 모바일 폰 와 배는 모바일 폰 매바이나 배제 릭지 배제 니마치 모바일 폰 매는 배비 자스 못 차대도 와 안디나 인터넷 레면은 차차도 지금 이슈 차대 차대도 그래서 치 유도서 쳐보 시우제 도서 전부 시우제 다디 내가 저 가서 유크라인가 개침부 쓰는 조셔도 거지도
And so we can sense, we know the degree to which we are under the control of our senses which are attached to external objects, by just simply viewing how important the mobile phone is in the world now. If our mobile phone is we have it, yeah, we're feeling secure in ourselves. But if we don't, or it's broken, or something went wrong with it, it's a disaster. It's panic stations, or the internet. We don't have the internet. What on earth can we do without the internet? It just shows the degree to which these things have become powerful objects of the senses, external objects to which we place so much importance.
대야 신내진간에 미과 라사 제도적 장배 신장계 세계 소소도의 시럽이 나오죠.
그래서 락사성에
다들 신라기 개발 미유기에서 미제지 셈미도버리 세전을 유매주거네 채와야 되는 미릭소스 어디 말했어요. 다 시바 신라니가 공급에 좀 전에서 공급에 좀 전에서 셈시도 미조원내에서 미도베 등에서 요장 이루기에서 또베 시라면은 대코나니 따위에서 미가 되베 등에서 지점 공장 이루기 또봐 미시베 다음에 배 대코나니 콘도 취베 따와 요바 이나야 셈제지도 네베 등에서 내바 이나 라와메바 요베 남도지 룽기 뚜베 이루기 되 세와 통화 미시베치 실라니가 고소 다들 친사와도 다 들어봐.
And again, that here it's just finishing the last point, so that when we look at the nature of meditative serenity and the nature of special insight, they are not differentiated in terms of the object of focus. Neither are they are differentiated. It wouldn't be right to differentiate them on the basis of one being of their being or not being kind of a non-discursive, clear states of mind.
다들 세자 유면서도 신내들 한동 계정 말 세자 유면서 지와 유미 계정식이 열봐. 정화 유미게 제 완전 그 한동 이미데 전에 미게 가야 말아. 다 릭직인데 트위팅이 유행이 왔다. 한테는 람 치면 나한테 또 가지고 있는 것도 와.
So this point is made, this final point is made because this sense of non-discursive and clarity, non-discursiveness and clarity does not refer to meditative serenity or special insight per se, but rather elements within meditative serenity, such as mental sinking and mental excitement. And so these are faults that need to be eradicated in order to focus clearly. So sometimes that mistake is made. People do not discern how meditative serenity and special insight are differentiated properly. So this is why it's made clear in the great treatise on the path to enlightenment. So the fourth outline is saying the reasoning why both meditative serenity and special insight are necessary, why we must habituate to both. And so it's saying that if you do not have the wisdom which knows how things are, even if you have a non-discursive concentration in which your mind is kind of like stable and does not scatter to other objects, but then you still lack the eyes which see reality, as it says. You are unable to see reality. And so here it's saying that if you have merely got meditative concentration and you've habituated just to meditative concentration, then it's impossible from just that to be able to see how things are. And then on the other hand, if you have cultivated the perspective of selflessness, of being able to see how things actually are, but you lack the meditative concentration, which is stable and which is able to remain single-pointedly on its object, and then your mind is going to be disturbed by the winds of uncontrollably fluctuating discursive thought, and that means that you will not be able to ascertain the nature of the way things are clearly. It will be impossible. So that's why it said it's absolutely necessary to have both the combined power of meditative serenity and special insight.
얘네야 다음에 배다와데 제가 인자 탑에 줄을 먼저 왔잖아. 코에 줄을 더 되기도 와. 코에 줄을 더 되기도 와. 어떻게지? 다 다르지야. 저기 말아서 남바인데 다음에 배 아니 저기 갈간zam기 아니 시에네 아니 공바이네야. 땡가지 매바이나. 야, 디가서데 다 간자 지금 녀몽기 다 간자 지금 방에라 미바치 많이 와야지. 용한테로 왔다. 용한테도 하고 다 간자다. 다 되는 임바서 니가 되게 뭐 차대지. 좋아. 가서 다 저기 다들 장전받아 리버쳐받아 저기 코나도 슝라 다 가서 다도 맞으면 매도요라. 근데 이 맞아 코나도 다외가 토나 다도 좀 내버도 캔는 거요. 다도 좀 캔나서는 다음에 또 두고 말아 봐. 좋아. 다 되는 이제 코에 잡아를 몇 두고 도 와. 이제 삼대 응무시도 습에 토벌을 내되거든요. 수매 응무시도 톱 되거든요. 용어 되기도 와. 다 이제 네가 계속 차 되기도 와.
So from within the Buddhist texts, it points out how though certain Hindu schools like the Samkhya and other schools have genuine practitioners who attain high levels in terms of meditative serenity. In other words, develop different very high levels of meditative concentration, and such as into kind of like the higher realms, absorptions and concentrations. Yet, because they don't have any presentation of the wisdom realizing selflessness, that when they apprehend or come to understand selfless, they conclude that means a complete lack of existence, and so they fall into the extreme of nihilism, and therefore their concentrations, as wonderful as they are, only end up as causes for cyclic existence, to be back in cyclic existence. And so it's like that when we have even a good understanding of the way things actually are, but we have no meditative concentration or very little, that we certainly cannot deal with, cannot effectively overcome, let alone abandon the meditative or mental afflictions. And so both are absolutely necessary for us, and that goes for anybody wanting to attain liberation from cyclic existence, that even though one has extremely subtle meditative concentration, even to the point of gaining the absorptions of the formless realm and so on, it's still not enough without having the wisdom realizing selflessness. And so that's why when it's discussed in terms of those striving to attain liberation from cyclic existence, they're referred to the training in the three higher trainings of ethical conduct, meditative concentration, and wisdom. And so, and they're explained, the necessity of them is referred to, that each subsequent training is dependent upon the previous or prior training. So wisdom is not possible without meditative concentration, but meditative concentration is not possible without good ethical conduct. And so that's why ethical conduct is described as the foundation, really, of all practice. Sometimes, we do concentrate on wisdom and meditative concentration a great deal, and forget about the fact that none of it is possible without ethical conduct. So we need to make sure, keep that in mind. So we can talk about having beautiful flowers and have good seed, but without the good ground, we won't get anything growing. It's also worthy of noting that our ethical conduct is something that's possible for us to do. It's within our grasp, to be able to do that. Whereas, we can talk about the beauty of wisdom and meditative concentration, very difficult to do, very, very difficult. But ethics is something that we can do. And so, we have to obey the laws of the land. There's a certain element of ethical conduct in that anyway. So we're doing that by the by. And that everybody aspires to be seen as a good person, a sound person. But it's you can't really be that kind of person without abiding in good ethical conduct, can you? So it's very clear that practically all the trouble of the world arises from a lack of ethical conduct or poor ethical conduct. All you need to do is look at the news, and this is very clear. So you can see whether it's the the internal or external or international conflicts of the domestic abuse, whatever trouble is kind of arising, and any of the news stories we can see at the heart of it is an inability to abide in decent ethical conduct. So yeah, that again, those who talk about having two or three marriages, why not just one? Because they couldn't abide in good ethical conduct. So the kind of like the conflict or the differences that have arisen due to in a marriage that lead to divorce or whatever, if you look into it, you can see at the heart is some inability to abide in decent ethical conduct. And so that the same goes for friendships, isn't it? That friendships, that the degree of harmony within friendships is often related to the skillful abiding in good ethical conduct, in good ethical systems. And that's only talking about in mundane ways in the world, isn't it? It's for the good of everybody to kind of live according to good ethics. And then it goes without saying that good ethical conduct is necessary to attain the states like liberation and the omniscient state of enlightenment. We can see that when we abide in good ethical conduct, there is less trouble for us, less trouble in our minds. And when there's less trouble in our minds, there's more peace in our minds. When there's more peace in our minds, we're more amenable to practice, and our practice goes better. The fifth of these outlines refers to the certainty of the order of both meditative serenity and special insight. And so I'm saying at the outset, when one is newly generating, one should begin with the cultivation of meditative serenity, and on the basis of that, and then habituate to special insight. But later, it may be that one enters into special insight originally, and on the basis of that, then one cultivates meditative serenity. And the sixth outline is how to train in each. And this has three subheadings. And A is how to train in meditative serenity, B is how to train in special insight, and C is how to combine both. So with regard to the first, how to train in meditative serenity, this has again three subheadings. The first is the preconditions for meditative serenity. Secondly, based on having those preconditions, how then to actually meditate on meditative serenity. And thirdly, having meditated, what is the measure of having established or attained serenity? So then the first of these, the three conditions for meditative serenity are 6, and they discuss being able to find and stay in an appropriate area or appropriate place. And it's a place which has kind of like 6 or 5 different qualities. That and then there that it should be you have easy access, is a good place to live. One has a good sound ground and sound friends, and that they have therein are the requisites for a comfortable or yogic practice. And so that easy access also refers to the ease with which one can gain the necessities for life, one's provisions and so on. And so a good place to live refers to a place where it's safe, without carnivorous animals and so on around, or thieves. Even though, again, I'm saying it wouldn't be much good for a thief to rob you because you're not supposed to have much anyway, but they might have great expectations just the same and calm. So any kind of enemy in that free from any kind of enemies in any way. And again, and so and now we must take into consideration any place that might be have any possibility of bombs or weapons and so on in it. Training it might be a training ground, and they might be doing some practices, artillery or ammunition practice or something.
가서라다 조사와서다 조사와 때마서 조사와서 좋아 저와 잡고 말아야 또 따와마도 저 직접 견제 제일 세바이나 냠는 내기도 아니 니메고로 미모부 용 때문에 매 받잖아. 니모 기부 뭐부 매체. 세모 자중한 쓰라고래. 지가서 지가서다 자시라 마다겐데. 거기서 못데. 와.
And then a little more extensively referring to these qualities, these characteristics from the graduated path itself, is referring to a good place to live, meaning that there are no enemies in that place, that it's conducive to living. It's possible for you to be there for the duration, and there's no kind of object. And also, and good ground is also referring to that which is conducive to your own health, your body, so that there's no kind of poison in the ground, that the water is clean, the water is good, and that you are not going to catch disease in a place like this, that it's free of illness, free of disease as much as possible. So in other words, a healthy kind of place to be. And good friends refers to if there are people around you, that they should be Dharma friends, and they should be also practicing in living in good ethics and with the similar view that you have. It's kind of like very disturbing if you have neighbors that are hypercritical of what you're doing and constantly in arguments, that's not good for a peaceful mind. And that and so that not many people will be good, and also that the atmosphere is quiet, that there is not too much external sound.
다디 가서 땡에서 담보 두배 갑라 되는지 다 땡에서 녀네 물론 땡보 차트도 뉴욕 때는 개요 말이야.
So this is kind of saying, pointing out, this is when we're starting out to develop the meditative serenity or meditative concentration. Once you have it, then you can meditate in the middle of New York. There's no problem.
And the 문에다는 코역이 내다 문에서는 이왕 초주자라 안 코알라다 네가 숙제도 니고 와 코알라 네가 숙제도 니고 와다 나라도 맞다면 뉴욕으로 대화이나 다 문에 롯데 보여겠지 코알라 네가 좀 년좀 때 보여겠지 요한테도 말와 또도 코알라 네가 숙제도 제도 니 되지 나 그때 뭐 매들 어디에
So again, I'm saying, yeah, you have to distinguish that the person with meditative concentration and a good development, a refined sense of renunciation, can really see reality of cyclic existence in the middle of New York. Whereas a person without that is kind of in the middle of New York going, oh, look at that, isn't that lovely, look at all those beautiful things, completely enthralled.
대화 중안에서 대화 중안에 추가라 소와서 상보와 뭐라 협박차바 매바자 다 같이 그러와 좋아 어떻게 대화 중안에서 추가라 소바다 그러다 추가라 소바다 지금 추가라 소바다 같이 소소 여제도다 지금 이거 셔바지 고고도 상도 된데 계획에 매바자 라는 여바티게 한뒤 고쳐봤잖아 이 고쳐봤잖아 이 최초에 통계를 배주다네 어다 고쳐봤잖아 안 초시봐 이 라는 여바데 초시봤잖아 어다 어제 초시 그래서 저거 매바 안 초시봤잖아 그래서 대바 중봤잖아 안 초시봤네 추글라 소바 능어서 근데 다도 초시봐 저거 뭐 용서 방안이었어 다지 그래서 녀son la 소베다 소베 자왕년 바다 힘바다 라존 남 하자 디시 체와다 아니 저 매제다 하자 까마지 war라서 용서 방파 어째 어떻게
The second of these preconditions is that one has few desires. Here it's explained as that one has no attachment to having more or better robes to wear. But of course this means in general possessions, that one is kind of like has kind of no need for more possessions. The third one is related to that, and that sense of having a sense of being satisfied with what you have, and that here again one is satisfied even if one has the very poorest of robes, and that this is the case with regard to possessions in general. And the fourth precondition is that one has abandoned many activities. These are kind of base activities such as buying and selling and so on. Also activities of sort of excessive socializing with other lay people or other renunciates, that one has put that to one side. And also one's interest in things like medicine and astrology and so on, one is not following that now, one has abandoned that to concentrate. And so of course it's taking, these are all in context, of course, that in general subjects like medicine and astrology can be of benefit to others. Of course, that goes without saying. But here, when one is concentrating on developing a meditative serenity, if one is having to think about medical issues a lot or explain treatments and medicine a lot to others, then that's going to interfere with one's ability to develop meditative concentration. So one should put that aside. A fifth precondition is that one should abide in pure ethical conduct, and this means that one does not violate any of the vows that one has taken, whether they are the Pratimoksha vows or the Bodhisattva vows or Tantric vows, and one abides in them, and one does not contravene these vows, whether they contravene any kind of natural law or proscribed law in the vows themselves. And if through carelessness or lack of conscientiousness one does incur a fault, one should immediately engage the purification process, such as developing regret, etc., and to purify that immediately. So according to the level of vow that you have contravened. So for example, if it's a Pratimoksha vow, then one confesses and purifies that according to that ritual in the presence of Sangha. If one has contravened the bodhisattva vows, one confesses and purifies that in the presence of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. And if one contravenes tantric vows, one purifies, one confesses and purifies that within the mandala of the particular meditational deity.
What did it say? Döbala sobe namdo yonso pawanesa namdo yonso pawanesa da kanche döba namla söbata chingwa la soba seti kasate nimita ane nyanjo jowa soje chime nimita koe mobu tamche jigwe chuje no nyamdo komnya döbe namdo pangpa chawo se.
And so also to put a stop to or overcome the discursive thinking in relation to desire realm, etc. This is the sixth precondition. And so here, looking at the faults related to this life of being killed or imprisoned, that one should put aside those kinds of thoughts, or even looking at the faults of future lives in the lower realms and so on, to put aside that, and also to all the kind of like how do you say, keep in mind even the to kind of not, how do you say, not engage in discursive thinking, even on the kind of a ephemeral quality of a cyclic existence, or just the kind of impermanent aspect of a cyclic existence, that all of these aspects should be for the moment put to one side.
ane dile tene ta nyamra mabuch seri zingri tuya maa kya kwa dile tuwa zabuli na maa kya ta zabuli gegab chia tizo chosong chia shuk chia chik chunchal tangi tuwa ta chunchal tangi ane chunchal ta sungyob chiyegi dila chosong shiwa tangu tuwa ruwa ta ta diga kanga sa deba wa di gechibu zini yong digi tuwa ta ruwa ta di gechibu zini di sungyob chiyegi chi yong digi yorwa ta kancha ane ta kancha ta kancha chik re ta kancha chik 다 미편주 자리 자 세리 당원에 전다 강가디가 개첨부지를 용되기도 와. 그 수바 거브리제 안티 개첨부 맞지 봐이나. 대서 놀아 이거 말아 하시라 너무 충분히 와. 저한테도 와. 나 때문에 봐서 디 개첨부지도 다 가자. 수바다 아니 칭와다. 나는 저는 저거 와서 왔다는 체디 님이 다 체디를 강한 체디에만 뭐 가르치는 연구도 뒤에 교원들이 제 상도 당스. 제 찾아서 주고 말이 뒤 용어야 가르치고도
Die samlingen in koso nandok de yongsu bang
or namdo de yongsu ba ta namdo yongsu ba ta dila chen kyo kar kar yongu do ta di ge chen bu zi wa ina ane yokra de ba mo pena kuma ja ngen che go zona jogo ina ko zona joe de kar chen ko de ba di ki ge chen bu zi kuma ja ge yo ba so ge chen bu zi kuma ta di tol chik cha rang mi zi der kang shi bu che de jogo do che de le na 좋았다. 개와 치마 비전이 녀송을 깨고 연구도 와. 녀송을 깨. 다 되네. 제가 모두는 코 하나를 찾을 때는 타와 연구면 또 와. 다 되게 남도 빵네. 다 되게 개침부 지야 되게도 빵네. 빵바이나 아니 채til에 기바. 치마 기바. 때도 되게 쭉쭉도 해 주고
And so in all these matters referred to like in the desire realm and true desire, like how war is engaged in as kind of a business prospect, a more powerful nation invades a less powerful nation and just creates the raw materials there as a kind of business option for them through war. all conflict, all sort of issues of conflict, disagreement, and to the way to deal with them in this context. And these are the faults of this life, but also the faults of entering into the lower realms and so on, of future lives. You see, they arise out of this discursive thinking, out of these of wanting to fulfill greed and desire, and so to put a stop to thinking about things like that, because they are kind of like discursive thinking.
다 되면서 되게 뭔가 딱받대만 매비지 다 딱받대만 매되게 다 집에 추진인 게지. 그래서 개체 못는 초구도 딜레 다 딜레스 치마이는 모두는 코알네 딜레 타바지 돈도 많이 탐지 치마지 돈도 많이 지금은 또 삼삼체네. 아니 되게 가서 체디 그제부터 초구 연하디 타바다 탐지 집에 규주 두었지. 그러와. 다 거에 상황도 마다 남도 된줄 파요네 아니 디 집에 최전 돈네. 아니 딜레 아니 타바지 돈도 녀네. 근데 저기 계신 분들 수고 여러 어디에서 되발라서 남도 용서 빵빵이 했어. 다 남도 지금 대화 대화죠. 대화 잡 디기리 저도 얘기 열때 얘네 거 주들 놀아지만 인사 아니 여기 디기 서로 동에 용되기도 와. 좋아.
And so in relation to looking at all phenomena in cyclic existence as being impermanent and ephemeral, to see that the way to view them in the context of meditation, in this context, is to see how, by not seeing them like that, that we fall into the trap of getting absorbed into cyclic existence and the stuff of cyclic existence again and again. So by really understanding them and reaching that conclusion, that there is no more than discursive thinking done about it, that all phenomena in cyclic existence are ephemeral. And so really I have got to actually get out of cyclic existence. I've got to attain liberation and the enlightened state, and I must concentrate on developing the causes to be able to do that, and meditative concentration is a key one. So it's kind of really abandoning discursive thought through a certain amount of reasoning that focuses and refines one's motivation for developing meditative serenity. So let's leave it there for today, after the preconditions.
아니 그래서 맞게 되겠다. 시내다 가서 그때 무슨 계속 지금 담보도 컨디션면에 영향을 거라면도 와. 그래서 나도 제투에도 추진다 그래서 나도 가는 제투다 와. 그래가 이게 되지.
So, but I think to take from this, what is most important is to really consider what we can do, and to really go after that now. That what's being described here in terms of meditative serenity and special insight can be. We get to that when we have the opportunity to really set aside time and have our minds well placed. But understanding what we can do now is to look after our ethical conduct and to really refine that and purify our whole ethical outlook, to kind of create the groundwork to be able to in the future enter into meditative serenity and special insight.
아니 배 고야마 약부터 연대 통솔 안 되게 돼 돈아 좀 그러와 이 소리네 기부도 돈은 얘기로 와 그러다 나바이라 아니 대나네 대화 정보 얘기라 아니 롱 차고 뭐게 와 전에 대대바이나 아니 소소레 평균 말을라 미셔 버서 녀살 왔다 그러와 아니 거 저기 돈아 용을 평균 말과
And so yes, that for us to really be a really pure and good example to those who are near us, to those who we are in contact with, and that we are living that example, so that others will be a positive, sanguine influence on others, that we remain relaxed and broad-minded and accepting and with great equanimity, etc. As opposed to this thing of labeling ourselves Buddhist or Mahayanist, but being really irritable all the time and angry all the time. In that way, we're not helping ourselves, and we're certainly not able to benefit others in that state of mind. So for it's kind of not so obvious when we are with a Buddhist amongst other Buddhists, but for when we're out in the world and we are moving around in circles where obviously most other people aren't Buddhist, but that we are seen to be an example of what we follow, and that we can do that very, very subtly, but also to be seeing that we are representing the Buddha and the Buddhist teachings as well, is kind of a very good way to live a life, and very good way of having a positive influence on others, let alone being in a position to be more beneficial towards others. So we make that prayer, don't we, that may the teachings of the Buddha remain a long time in this world, may they thrive in this world. And so that should be a part of who we are, that we are seen to be an exemplar of the best of Buddhism. And so people will see that, yes, these teachings from the Buddha are very good. They produce people who are very good quality people. So leave it there. Our Lam Rim dedication prayer. From my two collections vast space that I have amassed from working with this practice for a great length of time, may I become the chief leading Buddha for all those whose minds reach demise blinded by ignorance. Even if I do not reach this state, may I be held in your loving compassion for all lives when justly. May I find the best of complete graded paths of the teachings. May I please all the Buddhists by my practice. Using skillful means drawn by the strong force of compassion, may I clear the darkness from the minds of all beings, with the points of the paths as I have discerned them. May I hold Buddhist teachings for a very long time. With my heart going out with great compassion in whatever direction the most precious teachings have not yet spread, or once spread have declined, may I reveal this treasure of happiness and aid. May the minds of those who wish for liberation be granted bounteous peace, and the Buddha's deeds be nourished for a long time, by even his graded path to enlightenment completed, due to the wondrous virtuous conduct of the Buddhas and their children. May all human and non-human beings who eliminate adversity and create conducive conditions for practicing the excellent paths never be parted in any of their lives from the purest path raised by the Buddhas. Whenever someone makes effort to act in accordance with the tenfold Mahayana virtuous practices, may they always be assisted by the mighty ones, and may oceans of prosperity spread everywhere.
Jump, Master of flawless wisdom, as well as Vajrapani, destroyer of hordes of demons without exception. 2Apr, crown jewel, the sages of the land and snows, at your feet I make requests.